Hi, Betty.
Hi, be careful what you say.
We will.
Be careful of your questions.
Yes, we will. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, Betty, thank you so much for being with us today. We're just really excited to get to be able to talk with you. And just to set the context, you will be celebrating a birthday the end of this month, 110 years old. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. And I think it will be interesting for people just to hear a little bit about your background. And you were born in 1914 in Pennsylvania. And your parents, tell us a little bit about your parents. And
Well, I was at my grandparents when I was born because my father was in the Battle of the Marne in the First World War.
Wow.
And in a trench with mud and cooties and scared soldiers.
Yes.
So that was the first war that I was in. And I lived in Harrisburg and with them until he came home. And then my father was a minister, very progressive minister.
Mm.
And he had a couple of churches, and so I moved from one to the other.
In the place
New York
you were
State.
born in New York State.
so what does it mean to be a progressive minister?
Well, you don't believe that God is an entity. God is more of a transcendent spirit,
Oh, I do too.
and you have to be open to that.
Uh-huh.
And I happened to be brought up that way, so I ended up that way.
Mm-hmm. You feel the same.
I don't believe God is an entity up there looking down on me.
Right.
I believe it's a spirit that one contacts and uses in one's life with other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your parents, it was unusual that your parents went to college. Where did they go?
One went to Vassar and one went to Princeton.
Yes.
We were New York people. And my grandfather went to Japan and lived there for 40 years as a professor in a university.
Uh-huh.
Really?
And my father was born there, and when he was 15, they sent him to this country to go to school. But he wrote the first Japanese English grammar. My grandfather. And my grandmother, for whom I'm named, hated every minute of it.
She hated living in Japan?
Hated it.
Really? For 40 years?
She was a pain in the neck.
Your grandmother.
Yes. For whom I'm named.
Oh, okay. Elizabeth. and
But I'm called Betty.
Yeah.
B-E-D-D. Whoa, Betty.
Betty.
Not Betty, but
Betty.
Betty.
Yes. and did you have siblings?
Oh, yes, I had 3. One sister, older, and 2 younger brothers, and I can tell you a story. We were having a family get-together, and there were 4 of us there, and the youngest brother was extremely bright and was involved in computers and climate change. And in those days, people weren't involved in that. And so they were kidding him about being so damn bright.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, the minister, progressive, with a sense of humor, said yes, and he was a mistake. And my mother said, "Oh, Charlie." She was very much of a lady. She just
Talking about such things.
Yes. And did they live in where you lived, or how were you in touch with your siblings?
At that point, no, I think each one had his own special way of living with
Uh-huh.
a special marriage, and all very different, but compatible.
Yes. Nice.
Was it always assumed that you would go to college?
I went to Wells.
Yes. And was that kind of always in the plan that you would go to college?
No, I was supposed to go to, I think I told you, I was supposed to go to Vassar, but I went there for the weekend with my because my cousin had invited me to come when they were having the president for dinner, and he left his spoon in his soup cup. And I came home and I said, I can't go to a college where the president leaves his spoon in his soup cup. So I didn't go to Vassar, I went to Wells. Otherwise, I never would have met my wonderful husband.
Well, it was meant to be.
With whom I was married 82 years.
82 years. And you knew him longer.
No, not much.
Not much. Okay.
We didn't wait very long.
Do I understand that you were an athlete?
Yes.
What kind of sports?
Everything but football and rugby.
Okay.
Everything except that? Uh-huh.
Lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, tennis, golf, you name it.
Wow.
And you got a degree in art history. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's because I was majoring in chemistry and I was sloppy and I dropped a lot of the stuff in the chemistry lab down the drain, so I changed my major.
Safer.
Yes, and so then and my first job was a lecturer in an art gallery.
Oh, in New York? In
Rochester, New York.
And so did you get married while you were still after college or while you were still in?
Oh no, after college. Then I moved to New York to be with him. And he was in early television. He was probably the first television director.
Really?
He was just incredible. And his father was very famous because he made his debut in the Metropolitan Opera.
Yep.
And the way he made his debut was that he was standing by the stage waiting to make his debut in the opera at the Metro. And somebody pushed him on the stage. It was Caruso.
Oh, no.
Who was standing behind him playing jokes. So when his father got on the stage, he immediately sang. But my husband had a very unusual upbringing, being the son of a very famous singer. And it never went to his head.
Never did. So he was a very modest person.
Extremely.
Really.
What was your husband's last name?
Werrenrath.
Yeah.
His first name is Reinald, like Reginald, without the G. And he's Danish and German. And I am almost purely Scotch.
And how do you pronounce your husband's name?
Reinald.
Reinald.
And I called him Reinald.
Yeah. Yeah. Was his father, what kind of an opera singer was he? Was he
Tenor.
a tenor? Lovely.
So
Yes.
So did your husband travel? His father must have traveled the world then. Did your husband
Yes, he
travel
did.
with him?
Mm-hmm. And I have a story when he was a little boy. He and his mother and his sister were at a Carnegie Hall at a concert where their father was singing. And my husband, aged 8, got bored and silly. So he took the program and he tore the program up in little pieces and he put it on the balcony and it went down into the auditorium. So he had a life of having to behave himself, and when he didn't, he knew it.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Well, I had the same problem. My father was very well known as a minister and very well loved, and we couldn't do anything bad, except on Halloween. We dressed up as Robin Hood, and we'd go into people's gardens and take their heads of cabbage and throw them around. And if somebody left their furniture on their porch, we'd hide it. We had a great time.
One day of the year.
One day of the year, because we were dressed up. Nobody knew who we were.
That's great.
They probably ended up knowing.
They probably.
It sounds like you were never bored.
Never.
And
I'm not even bored here.
Isn't that wonderful?
I'd like to talk about living at Presbyterian Homes.
Please
Good
do.
question.
When did you move here?
1898.
And why did you decide to move to the Presbyterian?
Because my family did the same thing. And they were never a bother to us. We never worried about them. They were well taken care of. They were in a different retirement.
Uh-huh. What do you like about living here?
The variety of people.
We've heard that before.
And there's some very bright professors like Jada Hawley. It's just, and then look what they did. This was just a guy he's in charge of the desk. He's the one that brought the stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, brought us coffee and
Yeah.
And what about the people here do you like?
Well, some are very self-centered and some are very not self-centered. And I happen to be interested in the people that are not self-centered.
I would imagine.
Just had one move from 1020 Long Grove, which is an apartment house which is owned by the Presbyterian Homes. And she's so within herself. She hadn't lived in a community where you shared your thoughts. Not your experience, but your thoughts.
there's a big difference, isn't there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends over in the other side, we call it.
The other side. So what kinds of things do you like to talk about with people?
Religion, how to live with other people, how to differ.
You think your ability to talk with people and to continue learning has contributed to your longevity?
Oh, definitely. There are some people that are so narrow-minded and
Yeah.
uninteresting. Life goes on around them.
Rather than there being in it.
But there are some wonderful people here, some fabulous professors. I've got some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. And I go back quite a bit.
You take classes.
To have dinner with people. So, or I go to the pub.
The pub.
Where I have, let's see, what do I have? I have onion rings, Caesar salad, and mussels.
Sounds good.
I walk into the pub and they don't even have to ask me what I want.
And do you drink?
One drink.
Okay. Beer or wine or
Scotch.
Scotch? Okay, I should have known.
I've got Scotch
I
blood.
should have known.
Scotch.
Yes.
So you're on 3 committees now, aren't you, here at Presbyterian?
I'm on 3
You
committees.
think so?
Am I? What are they?
Newcomers?
I didn't know that.
Okay. Somebody's making this up then. Spirituality?
More or
That
less.
was a while back. I think
Oh, okay.
that you were on these committees maybe some years ago.
Okay.
I used to be on a hell of a lot of committees.
Yes.
But I've gone through that phase of my life.
Okay. I'm interested, though, and curious about, you strike me as somebody who's an advocate, that if something needs to be changed, you want to be in there making that change happen. What are some of the things you've been involved in over the...
I can't remember, but it's very interesting how the management here listens to suggestions.
Good.
And it makes you feel as if you're part of the community, if you can help direct its future.
Yes. I know someone else, don't ask me the name, of the person, another couple that lives here. And they say very much the same thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
You might know them if I could remember who they are. But they...
Not Don and Victoria Scott?
No. No.
Don Troutman and his...
Troutman.
But he's not married. He lives with a gal.
Okay. Yes. That is. Then I know two couples because I know them too.
I was... The first committee I was on was a committee that Don ran. He's very bright. He's my bootlegger.
And what does that mean to you?
When I run out of scotch, I say, hey, it's time to go back to the school, back to the store.
I saw a bottle of scotch sitting on your kitchen counter.
He probably bought that. I paid for it, but he bought it.
What's your favorite scotch?
I don't know. I'm not that.
You don't care.
I don't drink that much, and I just don't care.
Yeah. I read an article about you that said that you do your best thinking in the morning. Is that true?
Well, I wake up very early, so maybe I do. I try to think more than just in the morning. But
yeah.
I tell you what I do miss. I miss actually going to church.
Okay. And can you not do that here?
I can go to chapel, but I mean actually go to my church, Northminster. It used to be Allen Park Presbyterian Church, and I've always known the minister very well. And Jessica Gregory is a good friend of mine. She helped bury my husband.
How many years ago did he pass away, Betty?
My husband?
Yes.
About 5.
2019.
Not very long.
So he was 103 when he died.
Yeah, 103.
You miss him?
Very much. However, every time when I get sad about it, I think, you lucky woman, you had him for so long. So I stop crying and rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds...
No, it's a wonderful attitude.
Well, you have to have it.
Yes.
If you sit and mourn all the time. And there's so many people here who are really interesting. And having lived here for so long, I have a lot of friends.
I'm sure you do. I was just trying to imagine all the changes that you witnessed in your lifetime.
Oh. And all the wars.
And the wars.
Vietnam War. My husband and I took in a couple of families, some from Cuba and some from Vietnam, and I'm still in touch with them. We enriched our lives by spreading out.
Yes.
And then there are people that just don't do anything but their own family, and how boring it must be.
Right. You know, we have a lot of listeners to this recording that you're making. A lot of people will be listening to it. They're of all ages, mostly women of all ages. And I'm just wondering, do you have, you've been telling us all the nuggets, the secrets for being able to maintain who you are at this age. Do you have anything to say to them, that the people who are listening?
Sure, I got a lot.
Come on.
I got a lot of advice.
The platform.
Give it to us.
Be more interested in them than you are yourself. And I find that you can tell in a minute who's really interested in you. And then it makes you want to be interested in them.
That's important.
Did I make my point?
You did.
Perfectly.
Just perfectly.
What else?
I think you have to, if you have lived a life with kids in a town, in a church, and in schools, you've learned to live in a community. And you shouldn't live here unless you've lived in unless you're willing to be open. Mm-hmm. I think the reason I have so many friends is I like to listen to people, what they have to say.
Yes.
That's a dumb thing to say.
No, it's true. It makes so much sense.
That's why we like doing this podcast. We like listening to women's stories.
I would like to, yes.
Yeah.
There are a tremendous amount of number of people who have had such effective lives.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people living here, it's very hard to live in a community and have your own individuality dampened. For others, they just take it as it comes. Mm-hmm. Ask me another question.
Well, I just want to go back a little bit in terms of you and your husband created over 100 educational films. What were those about?
Well, you know what Encyclopedia Britannica films are for schools. That's what they were.
Oh.
They were written for schools. And for instance, we specialized in traveling to different countries. We'd go to a country and stay 6 weeks, film around, meet people, get to know the area, go home and make the film, and then come back and go to another country. And I guess we did that in about 8 countries.
And where were these films used? In the schools?
In schools. Like Encyclopedia Britannica, as a teaching tool.
Yes.
Imagine traveling, living in 8 different countries.
Oh, 6 weeks in each one.
Sounds wonderful.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Good.
Yeah.
I've had a wonderful life.
Great.
And how will you celebrate your 110th birthday?
I've been celebrating it for the last week.
Okay.
Why not?
This afternoon, they're going to bring a birthday cake into the dining room and share it.
Oh, nice.
Is it just another year to you, or is there anything special about 110?
Well, I have that feeling that people think I'm going to die pretty soon, so they better be nice to me.
Uh-huh.
You're going to prove them wrong. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about what?
How do you feel about living many more years?
I don't ever want to be a burden. But however, I want to find out how my great-grandchildren are turning out and what they're going to do and if they're going to be involved in government or not. They're very bright and they're very interested in what's going on. And I don't envy their parents or my daughter and her husband being involved in raising them, because it must be very difficult to raise kids now and not have them anxious.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's a very negative way to live. So far, they're doing very well. They were having a discussion of what bias was, for instance, at the age of 12.
What did they have to say about it?
Well, I don't really remember what that was all about.
Okay.
But my daughter calls every night,
Oh.
and she reports.
Nice.
And they're very different. One likes to dance and play the violin, and the other likes to play more of a sport.
And this is, they're twins. Is that right?
2 pairs of twins.
2 pairs.
I have 2 kids, each of whom had a pair of twins.
Are they the first twins in your family?
No. I guess we've had a couple.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful.
But we lived one of the best things that ever happened. We lived on a block in Highland Park for years, and we were in our 40s or 60s, and everybody else was in their 30s and 20s. And we're still in touch with those those families. One of them took me out for dinner at Chili's on Sunday. Oh, I've just had a very exciting life.
It's wonderful. Well, we thank you so much for talking with us. We really do.
Well, I'm tired of talking about myself.
Thank you, Betty.